getting really mad, and I was like taking a shower, right? And then I slip and I start yelling. And then the guy knocks on the door and tells my friends to be quiet, and then my friends are like, "Christie, shut up!" I'm just like, I fell down. I'm like, "Shut up!"
Same.
We're gonna go.
Me, probably.
Yeah, it was really funny.
Is there like a podium?
Yeah, right there.
You didn't know what to do.
Can I borrow your shower?
No, my friends opened the door, and then I was in the shower.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so bad.
No, but still
Give
it's
me your
awkward, right? Like,
Yeah, he was like this, like, he has a southern accent, and he's like this, like, old guy.
I have a southern accent too.
okay.
That's a
This
stretch.
is just the facade.
Oh
That's
yeah.
nice.
Alright. Czarina, go.
Okay.
Wait, are we doing the 5, 7, 5 thing?
It's 7, 7, 7, 7, 5, 5.
Yeah.
That one.
2, 5, Isis.
Sounds like one of those
You guys are like twins.
Yeah, because ice is totally
They're just so cute. Sorry. They're so cute. They're like cute.
Alright.
Time starts now.
Wait, I actually
You're
need to
ready.
look time this. Thank you, actually. Okay, so before I begin, as a brief off-time roadmap, I'm first going to give the definitions and framework, move on to the plan, and then move on to the 3 advantages for implementing our plan. So, is everyone ready?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so time begins now. We approved today's resolution. The USFG should send ground troops to fight ISIS. So to begin with definitions, ground troops mean we define as American soldiers, like boots on the ground. ISIS is the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, and it's a terrorist and jihadist militant group. And send means to deploy. Our criterion for today's debate is going to be net benefits. So whoever provides the most net benefits worldwide is going to win today's debate. Question.
How many ground troops do you plan on sending?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay.
Thank you. So moving on to the primary question that my opponent has, how many ground troops are we going to be sending? So moving on to the affirmatives plan, our actor is going to be the United States federal government, specifically the Department of Defense. Our funding is going to be, well, all of the defense's budget. The time frame is going to be as soon as possible, and we're going to be sending 10,000 ground troops to the Middle East to combat ISIS. Does that answer your question? Okay. I'm glad. Moving on. So first of all, we need to understand why it's going to be beneficial for the United States to fight ISIS, and this is because ISIS is incredibly strong, and current support is not enough. So, and this for 2 main. First of all, okay, and why the United States is needed to fight ISIS. Okay, so the first reason is because ISIS presents an unprecedented threat. Essentially, it right now has deep domestic support in the Middle East due to Sunni dissatisfaction with Shia control, and also backing by several Middle Eastern governments. Essentially, it's capitalizing on the chaos in Syria and trying to fill the power vacuum that occurred due to Bashar al-Assad. And it also has a military funded by Iraq, but moreover, contrary to all the other terrorist organizations, it also has stable funding. And this is due to taxation in all the areas it controls, oil sales, it actually owns an immense amount of oil wells, kidnapping ransoms, so essentially it's financially independent. It currently functions as its own private entity, and thus it has so much power that simply the Middle Eastern countries with so much dissatisfaction, with so much fraction going on, and with so much internal fighting cannot alone solve for this problem. Simply put, the Middle East needs help, and we can see this in the status quo because the ISIS is currently growing by 6,000 recruits each month. It's capitalizing on the Middle Eastern people's fear. It's capitalizing on their hatred, and the Middle Eastern nations are trying to do as much as they can, but obviously this is not working. Yes?
Are you in the status quo that the U.S. along with the coalition of other countries are sending airstrikes throughout the region?
Yeah, okay, see, airstrikes are different from ground troops, which is actually this resolution right here. Ground troops are boots on the ground. Airstrikes obviously operate in the air.
I'm kidding.
So what's your question?
Oh, so
Yes, I am aware of that, thank you, and obviously it's not sufficient, seeing as ISIS is now growing by 6,000 recruits each month. We need much more to combat this terrorist organization. It's financially independent, it has political supporting from other Middle Eastern nations, and it's continually growing. So really, you just proved that further that So moving on to our second and main contention. Can you put your password? Thank you. So moving on to our second and main contention is that boots on the ground and this resolution is needed to maximize the effectiveness of our airstrikes. In the status quo, we see that airstrikes are incredibly inaccurate because we really don't have any ground intelligence to direct where we're going to conduct these airstrikes. Essentially, the United States planes are just going willy-nilly on the sky and just throwing bombs everywhere, whether it be civilians or ISIS troops. We don't know because we don't have any intelligence. In fact, we are killing as many innocent civilians right now as we are killing ISIS troops. And this is actually hurting the United States and actually strengthening ISIS due to what's known as the Hydra effect. And the Hydra effect is every single time a foreign nation kills one innocent civilian, it actually leads to 3 new recruits to terrorist organizations because these people are angry, they're frustrated, they view the United States as this terrible monster coming in to kill all of these innocent civilians and their family members, and as a result, they retaliate by joining ISIS, and ISIS is going to capitalize on the fear of the people. However, this resolution is going to solve this, because essentially what's going to happen is that, according to U.S. General Martin Dempsey, who's chairman of the Joint Chief of Staffs, U.S. military advisors are needed on the ground to spot targets when Iraqi forces go on the offensive against ISIS and when our airstrikes go on the offensive, because boots on the ground are needed to guide airstrikes. And also, it's estimated currently, as I stated before, according to the Washington Post, that airstrikes currently have led to about 1,000 ISIS deaths per month. However, ISIS gains 6,000 new members a month, which really shows how they're capitalizing on the terrible inaccuracy of these airstrikes. But however, it is estimated that if we have boots on the ground to target these airstrikes, what's going to happen is that the power of these airstrikes is going to increase by 10 times, which means instead of killing 1,000 ISIS members a month, we're going to be killing 10,000. So that leads to a 4,000 net benefit. In case you didn't know. Do you have any questions?
No, not really.
Okay. So moving on. So it's really going to be able to target these ISIS members. And the real tangible effect on this is going to be twofold. First, on soft power, the United States has always prided itself in being the international fighter against injustices. It's always said that we're going to fight against human rights abuses, that we're going to create peace around the world and democracy. Well, this is the United States' chance to show the international community just its devotion and just its commitment to solving for this terrorist organization and stopping all of these abuses. But moreover, it's also going to solve for human rights abuse. In the status quo, the UN Commission for Human Rights condemned ISIS for targeted killings, forced conversions, abortions, trafficking of women, sexual abuse, destruction of religious and cultural sites, etc. And as of August, 1.8 million Iraqis have been displaced, and this number continues to increase. Moreover, 4 million human rights violations have been reported in Iraq. However, when we have these airstrikes and when we are going to be able to effectively stop ISIS, essentially we're ending all of this abuse. We're saving people's lives, and we're ensuring that the Middle East is going to be stabilized, that lives are going to be saved, and the United States emerges as the premier soft power and worldwide as an international power. So, in conclusion, I strongly urge your information. Thanks.
Hey, Czarina, do you have a third contention?
No.
I just held the U.S. hedge.
That's impact. Oh, yeah. I thought that was the hedge sign.
Yeah, hedge. Oh, hedge.
Okay. So,
The first one is ISIS is bad. Second one is help airstrikes.
No, mine are like airstrikes are ineffective one, and then airstrikes are good.
What the?
Well, you didn't actually mention airstrikes.
Oh yeah. Whoops.
So,
My bad.
this is going to work. Okay. So,
Good luck.
we're
Very
She mentioned it in her
did
second
mention
one.
it.
Yeah.
It's our second one.
Just respond to them as distinct. Even. Yeah.
They are distinct.
Wait, can we set the timer for that?
I don't think they are.
Okay, so brief top 10 recap. We're going to be adjusting. Okay. We're just going to go in order of the ask, then get to the neg. And just as a brief heads up, some of the reputations for the ask contention will be the neg zone contention.
That's bad.
And we'll be clarifying that when that's the case so everyone can understand. Alright. Wait, why is it starting already? You said it for 7.
Incompetent.
I have a flip phone!
Hey,
the negation team, I strongly negate today's resolution. The USFG should send ground troops to fight ISIS. So we agree with the framework of the AF team. We're just going to go on to their first contention. That was how ISIS is an unprecedented threat, and how they're a stable entity, and how U.S. troops are going to somehow stop them. Okay. So they did specify that there are 10,000 troops. What they never did specify is how 10,000 troops is going to be the right number to defeat ISIS. If, according to their own statistics, that ISIS is gaining over 6,000 followers per month, how is 10,000 U.S. troops supposed to make an impact or supposed to obliterate ISIS? They never specified that, therefore they have no solvency. Sorry, I have a lot to get through, but when I have time, I'll call you
Answer
again.
your question.
Okay, so are you aware that these ground troops are there for, to target, to be able to supply ground intelligence so that our airstrikes are going to be more effective,
Okay, so
not directly combat?
Okay, so when you actually
are you aware of that?
went onto your plan text, you just said ground troops. No, because
So
when
you're
you
not
talked
aware of that.
about when you talked about your plan text, you simply said ground troops as in putting American troops on the ground. So therefore, we do assume U.S. combat, because according to U.S. precedents, when we send ground troops to Iraq, they were actually combating. They were not just. They were also gathering intelligence, but they also combated. Sorry, I can't answer your question. Okay, this is ground troops. Going on. So, second contention was that of how airstrikes are ineffective, and how they just fire willy-nilly, and how they see the U.S. as this terrible monster. I quote them, terrible monster coming. Okay, so if we send ground troops to the areas in which ISIS is held, civilians are going to think of U.S. as this terrible monster intruding on their space. We can already see due to historical precedents. Okay, so according to the IB Times, Iraq. Okay, so according to the International Business Times, yeah. Okay, so Iraqis have already. Actually, I'm gonna get. Okay, so. We're going to actually go on to our first contention now, is that of civilian deaths, okay? So we're actually going to address this. So, okay, so first contention is that of death. So we see that so the argument of the AF team was how supposedly ground troops are going to cause less death and are actually going to target ISIS better than what airstrikes would do. However, we see in precedents of Iraq, when we send ground troops there, we had over 500,000 Iraqi civilians dying, and including more American deaths. And what we see is that civilians die because of U.S. intervention. So what we see here is that we think airstrikes are doing bad, and we think airstrikes are causing harm. It's going to be even worse if ground troops come in, because this is actually. Sorry, I don't have time, but if I get time, I'll talk to you. Okay. So then. Okay. So going on. What we see here is that it's going to be even worse, because we have seen in the past over 500,000 people dying. This is going to happen again if the U.S. intervenes. There are still civilians in ISIS-held territory, and they're the ones at risk. And they're the ones who are going to get killed if the U.S. intervenes. And according to a quote by the International Business Times, Iraqis are scared, have been scared of the U.S. since the Iraq War. We have seen that the Iraq War and U.S. intervention has already scarred them. So what we are doing is basically mimicking what happened then. And we already know that it's not going to work, as it never worked then, and it will not work now. So going on, their third contention was that of U.S. hedge of increasing soft power, and how U.S. is going to be standing up for morals. Okay, countries act out of self-interest. We don't, although we would like to think that we act out of morals and helping others, we act out of self-interest. When it benefits us, that is when the U.S. is going to intervene. So although it's very nice of the affirmative team to come up and talk about morals and what's right, countries act out of self-interest. Let's just get that clear. And they talked about U.S. hedge. Okay, so U.S. hedge is bad because many people, including people who live in the area of the Middle East, already think that U.S. is...
Like, you got our point wrong.
Okay. I'm sorry, I really...
No, it's okay that you got it wrong. That's fine.
Jesus Christ.
Okay, so they already think that U.S. intervention, as they've already intervened too much, and they see U.S. as a start always trying to stick to business for what it's not supposed to do. So we're just giving into that stereotype, and ISIS could actually use this as grounds for recruiting more people. So yeah. So going on to the next case is that we already went over is civilian deaths. So just to reiterate, we caused 500,000 civilian deaths when the U.S. went into Iraq. So we can see this and even more people dying if the U.S. were to go in. They already view us. U.S. HUD is already viewed It's bad because people think we're sticking our business into other countries' ordeals, and we are just going to give into that perception, and ISIS can use this as grounds for recruiting. So going on to this, going on to subpoint B is that, I did it, okay? So going on to subpoint B was that, so assuming that the U.S. actually had the military capability to push out ISIS and to cause some impact towards ISIS, eventually we would have to leave the area. But when the U.S. comes in, what we do is we automatically assume the power of the region. But once they leave, there's this power vacuum, as what happened when we tried to leave Iraq, and we put in this dictator named Saddam Hussein, who ended up persecuting his own people, which is why a lot of people hate us over there. So we can assume that the same thing is going to happen, because once we get in there, and let's say we do cause impact, and we do receive the responsibility of power in the region, eventually we are going to have to leave, and eventually there is going to be a power vacuum in which ISIS can still just come back again, or even a worse group can come back again. And civilians also don't want the U.S. being this looming presence around them. So it would be the civilians' best interest for the U.S. to leave, which would cause a power vacuum, and which could cause a lot of other problems, and ISIS just coming back again. So the impact is that more deaths, people think they're actually not going to die because ISIS left, and then the U.S. leaves, creating this power vacuum, which ISIS just comes back in. Those are our impacts, more deaths. Okay, so going... Fine.
So you are aware that there is already currently a power vacuum in Syria, which is why ISIS is in power, because it's capitalizing on that.
Okay.
You can't create a power vacuum when there is already a power vacuum.
Okay, so
answer my question.
50-second
No,
grace
answer
period.
my question.
Sorry, I don't have
So
to.
you're not answering. Okay, fine.
So 50-second grace period is going on to our second contention. This is what ISIS wants. They want a holy war. They want the U.S. to come in, and they want us to fight them because they believe in this holy war, and they use this radical ideology to recruit people, saying the U.S. is this huge presence who we have to wage holy war against. And us going there just giving into that presence. And just to underline why the app has no ground is because one, they never specified how 10,000 is actually going to solve for anything. U.S. HUD is bad, and more deaths under app plan. For all these reasons, I strongly negate today's resolution. Okay. Okay, you want me to time that?
Is everyone ready? So as a brief off-time roadmap, I will first be going over the affirmative case and my opponent's refutations to our case, then moving on to refuting their entire two contentions, and then just clarifying the difference. Time starts. So our first contention was that ISIS is an unprecedented power. Their power is extremely growing in the Middle East, and their influence has been felt in the international community. As if, my partner listed out all these different human rights violations. Since 2014, they've had 4 million human rights violations in Iraq, and that ISIS is having 6,000 new recruits every month. Now, to this, they said, how is 10,000 ground troops the right number, and how the Middle East already sees the United States as a terrible monster, and how this image is just going to get perpetually worse. However, I'd like to just clarify that right now we have no ground troops in Syria to fight ISIS. So essentially what we're doing is we're actually having a net benefit, because right now there are 0 ground troops in Syria. So we're putting 10,000 ground troops. So obviously there is going to be a net benefit, because we are essentially reducing the Hydra effect. My partner said that these ground troops are going to gather intelligence, because right now what's happening is the United States is trying to control a region from halfway across the world with airstrikes. And as a result, innocent civilians have died. And as my partner stated, due to the Hydra effect, every 1 innocent civilian that dies, 3 more terrorists come about. So essentially what we're doing is, by not having ground troops, we are further perpetuating this system that ISIS has put in place, further giving them more recruits. What we are doing with ground troops is giving intelligence about where the terrorists are, what locations we need to put airstrikes in. It's not just going to be all combat, but rather an intelligence. So we're going to have 2 benefits of having ground troops in Syria. Moreover, they said that U.S. is a terrible monster. Well, in the status quo, we are really not doing anything more than just putting airstrikes on halfway across the world. So what we need to do is we need to enter the region and really gather intelligence about which areas need to be attacked and which areas have innocent civilians. Because what we can see is that innocent civilians in these times of conflict and in these terrorist locations, they actually cluster in certain areas. So what we see is that with airstrikes, we're just hitting clusters of innocent civilians and thus killing thousands of innocent people in the Middle East. More, we're moving to our second contention of maximizing airstrikes. Now, we talked about how the airstrikes have killed as many innocent civilians as ISIS has, ISIS members, and they actually have not refuted to any of our subpoints and any of our evidence or our contention, number 2, of our impact of soft power and how we can show the international world that we really stand up for democracy and human rights abuses and solving human rights crises. Okay, and they have not refuted our two impacts of 1, saving lives, and 2, stabilizing the Middle East. My opponents just come up here and just say, okay, their contention 2 is not really working, but they have not given you any real evidence or any actual refutation as to why we are not saving lives, as to why we are not stabilizing the Middle East by putting in ground troops. So now moving on to their 2 contentions. Their first contention was that ground troops are bad and how 500,000 Iraqis, civilians died when the United States put ground troops in. However, I'd like to just clarify that the context of Iraq back in the day and right now is completely different. What they talked about Saddam Hussein, the United States did not put him in power. They took Saddam Hussein out of power. What happened in Iraq was that there was a power vacuum that was not being filled. That's what the United States went in trying to instill democracy. This situation is completely different because ISIS is already filling the power vacuum in the Middle East. The power vacuum is filled. What we need to do is remove ISIS out of and take them out of power. Moreover, is that currently the local Iraqi armies are the ones that are fighting in the region. As I said before, all we have is airstrikes, and these Iraqi armies, essentially, they have a reputation of disorganization, corruption, poor leadership, and poor morale. So as we can see, these Iraqi armies, and my partner already stated that Iraq actually funds ISIS, so there's really no benefits of the Iraqi armies just continuing to fight and give up in Syria because there's no net benefit in doing that. But rather, the context is different, so we must send American ground troops to go and clarify the situation because there's a division in loyalty within the Iraqis themselves. Do you have a question?
Yes. So are you aware that in the region or around in the borders near Syria that the Kurdish, the Peshmerga are currently there trying to combat ISIS as well?
It's not been working. Yes, that's what I mean. Okay. That there are no American ground troops, and that's what we need to put American ground troops to clarify. So moving on to their second contention, which is soft power. I guess their first point was self-interest because they didn't explicitly state this, but the United States does have self-interest. Number 1 of saving lives. We see human rights abuses every single day. As my partner stated, there's sexual abuse, destruction of religious and cultural sites, trafficking of women, abductions, forced conversions, targeted killings, and ISIS has been expanding every single day. These are sufficient problems for the United States to step in and really protect the lives of these innocent civilians. Secondly, we talked about gaining Middle East soft power. This is definitely a self-interest of the United States. So really, there are several interests the United States has and why they should actually intervene in this region. I'd like to also clarify that we're not, our benefit was not hegemony, it was soft power because we're trying to gain allies in the Middle East. Moreover, moving on to subpoint B, which is the power vacuum, and they talked about how we put in Saddam Hussein. This is actually just incorrect. Their history is incorrect because Saddam Hussein, we actually took Saddam Hussein out of power, and thus, and actually, the power vacuum existed when we entered the region. However, in the current situation, the power vacuum is being filled by ISIS. Now, moreover, I'd like to also say that 73% of the American people support ground troops in the Middle Eastern region. And so, not only does America have self-interest in attacking this region with ground force and gaining intelligence because current airstrikes are not working, but the American people, this is the democracy, and the American people, 73% of them want ground forces in the Middle East because ISIS is growing day by day, 6,000 recruits per month, and so this situation needs to be combated as soon as possible, and thus we strongly urge them for a move. Thank you. God, it's terrible. It was so bad.
There's the definition.
No.
Galactic combat has to include when we're talking about troops. It's not
Yeah, you
intelligence.
can if you want to.
Yeah, go for topic. Say intelligence is going to be there, but also combat. Like under
Literally, the resolution says fight.
yeah, it says
Right?
Yeah,
Not spy on
I said some of them are. Oh, and fighting ISIS can be like directing intelligence for airstrikes to fight ISIS. Like honestly,
and how like all the human
you can't run a T-shell at this point. Just
US
FYI.
Actually,
comes in as
yeah,
well.
you totally
Like,
can.
Yeah,
US
They can
soldiers
also
do
run
it.
moving target for not saying that it is.
Just say the human rights mission.
We didn't-
talk about.
okay,
It's
we're
gonna
gonna
happen
have
when
this,
the US comes in. We're gonna have this.
Right. And
They move in
And
target. They
the
screw
US
up
has is
cases.
bad because we've already.
Hey, no preference.
okay, so I would like to begin with.
You have a nice hand.
Yeah, you were
Really good. Thank you. I know.
No, she has really nice handwriting.
It's really pretty. Thank you. Okay. So I'm just gonna start now. We are the negation team for the topic. The USFG should send ground troops to fight ISIS. And I'd just like to thank George Bush for making this topic happen because he declared a war on so many people in the country of Iraq, which led to deaths. Okay, yeah, right. Like it really matters.
I think the people of Iraq really care.
Well, yeah, no, but they probably don't pronounce it that way.
Cousins, leave it and go with what you have to say. Okay, just go with what you have to say.
So the civilian deaths that came from that war are dangerously around 500,000. That's civilian deaths in Iraq. Plus the American deaths that were 4,080 deaths. So I'd like to begin. They said that ground troops will make it better because there's so much violence going on in there. Okay, so right before the Iraq War, things were really bad without ground troops, right? Then we put in ground troops and everything got worse.
Wait, where are we?
Hi. Yeah, I have a. Are you okay? Anyways, are you aware that the Iraq War started because of ground troops? There were like no airstrikes, etc., before the Iraq War.
So they, yeah, thank you. They started because of ground troops. Thank you.
Do you know what the Iraq War happened when?
Yes, I
Tell
did.
me.
2003.
2003. To what? Give me the time
Just
frame.
stop it. Okay, she's wasting your
Give me the time
time.
frame. Give me the time frame. No, you can't answer. Okay.
You're ridiculous.
Now I'm coming personal for us.
Okay, so additionally, you said innocent civilians are being hit because they clustered together during airstrikes. That is very, very, very bad, right? But we need to work on our technology in the airstrikes before we send in 10,000 people. Speaking of which, how are we going to get that number? How are we going to choose from the people willing to take that number? Are we going to open a draft? Are we going to send a bunch of people?
No, don't talk. Just say 10,000.
Oh, okay. 10,000 is not enough, and we need way more than that if we're going to send people in. Right? So, yeah, if you can prove that 10,000 troops are enough, we will happily listen to that argument. But until then,
You're gonna happily do it.
Thank you.
okay, so they also said that we currently have, the ground troops we have are making a difference. No, they're not. Who are you talking about?
Huh?
Who has not heard this?
Yeah, I never wrote on this one.
Sure. Okay, additionally, they said that the Iraqi army is incompetent. We agree with that. Guess who is competent? The Kurds, who are also waging war in that area. Oh no!
Just ignore them, okay?
Yeah,
No, I have
I'm
an
gonna
answer.
You haven't answered any.
No, just ignore them. You don't have to take their questions. You
Yeah,
don't
I'm
have
not
to.
going to take your question.
Do you even know what the curve is?
Just ignore her, okay? Just they're already wasting enough of your time. Just
Okay.
go with what you have to say, okay? Yeah, just go on the curse. You know what the curse
Yeah, right? They're the Kurdish militant group. And they are, they're fighting ISIS. And they're well organized. And if we're going to help in that area, we can send weapons or food or needed resources. It would be a better alternative to sending American people to the ground. The only people who want American troops in Iraq are ISIS, right? They want to kill Westerners. The Iraqi people don't want them there. They saw what happened during the Iraq War, where Saddam Hussein was bad, and now we've got even worse groups. Yeah, more deaths, right?
Yes.
So, like, okay. I can't understand my handwriting. Let's see. Oh, and ISIS actually does not present an unprecedented effect compared to the Taliban, which actually kills more people monthly in most areas.
I don't understand.
No, like, I'm having some help.
Yeah, but with the big surprise.
Okay. Additionally, they said that the USA is a role model and fights for democracy. Emphasis on the word fight, killing people, not that great. And doing so,
Just keep going. Just keep going.
Czarina, stop making comments. I'm talking to Divya at a full speaking point.
there have been 500,000 civilian deaths, plus the 4,803 American military deaths, and that's 504,803 total deaths. And the result, Iraq as a nation hates us, and that hate is fodder for ISIS recruits.
No, like partner to partner conversation.
Right, because that's totally not what you're doing.
Just say that you need combat.
This is against the rules.
You're gonna have combat.
For them to just conversate.
It's not a word.
Converse. Yeah.
I like saying conversate.
Okay.
It adds more syllables.
Czarina, shush.
Yeah, they're arguing for intelligence.
Oh yeah, obviously. You're arguing for intelligence, okay? That's different from fight ISIS. That's called spying on ISIS.
Like we're arguing, you have to have combat troops in
Yeah, you have to have combat troops, which A leads to more deaths, B leads to more hate. What are you doing?
Where's combat in the resolution?
It's called something called fight.
No, that's my question. Where's combat in the resolution?
Okay, I'm gonna use every single word that's in the resolution,
Where's
like in
combat?
random order.
Where?
It's not up there.
Exactly.
So
Cute.
it's
Combat is
ignore.
not up there. Thank you.
Oh my
Yeah,
God,
that
just-
doesn't matter.
Just ignore
It's
that.
a completely viable argument. Can I help? Whatever.
Just keep going. Just see what it is to do.
Okay, so according to 5 O'Clock Shadow, one of the episodes of Serial Season 2, it's episode 6, Jason Dempsey, who is a very decorated, kind of G.I. Joe on the Boberto case, said that the one thing that the Iraqi people cannot stand is to have their areas being swarmed by American soldiers who speak their language with a heavily accented voice, if at all, okay? They don't want our help because our help is what leads to deaths during the Iraq War.
Okay.
Okay, I would point out that is actually a perfectly legitimate source because they are actually investigating the case in like a criminal
Yeah.
investigation
Yeah.
manner.
Sarah, to be back to everyone, like to thank the judge. Like to thank her for her opponents for being so considering when my partner was talking. I'd like to thank Sapna for being in the audience.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Don't be desperate.
And I'd also like to thank our partners for, our opponents for being showing much consideration when my partner was talking.
It was very respectful. I got your back. I really appreciate
All right, can I,
Oh yeah.
can I try talking really fast? Okay. This is gonna be really bad, but that's okay. So off-time room map, I'm just gonna hit a few points that the that the AF made and whatever's left of their case. Going on and showing how the AF has won, the NEG has won this debate. Okay. Okay. Time. Wait, dude, you already started. I'm sorry.
Oh my
Holy- I can't.
Okay, I think the lesson on
It's not her fault because she doesn't have an active student.
I know, but I still managed to learn typing songs that it's not hard
Typo?
as of like
Okay.
Let's save this debate for next
Time starts now. So some of the key points of the net that the AF has made is the human rights violation made by ISIS and how American troops are somehow supposed to solve for that. However, what they fail to realize is that American troops may cause human rights violations of their own. Because when they go and they end up killing more civilians, they end up hurting the populace, and they end up doing this power vacuum, which leads to dictators and threats coming back. So violation, and it's just going to cause more harm and more deaths and more human rights violations. Okay, so going on, these talked about how they're only going to be gathering intelligence, because nowhere does it say that they have to combat ISIS. May I point out that combat is a synonym to fight. And may I point out in a precedence, when we send ground troops, we send it with the intention of fighting them. We don't send it just to gather intelligence, although that may be a key part. The inherent mission is to fight the people on the ground. That is the whole point of ground troops. If we just wanted information, we could send some spies. So therefore we must accept that in their definition that they are going to be sending people to fight ISIS. And we must assume that if their plan were to succeed and if there was some impact to ISIS, they would eventually leave a power vacuum, because they would have to leave because one, the American government wouldn't want to keep their people there in the first place. Two, the Iraqi civilians and people don't want American troops in there. And three, it's really hard to maintain a presence there. And then once they left, this would leave a power vacuum which more extremist groups could come in, making the problem inherently worse. Because, for example, refugees who've been fleeing the area from ISIS would come back thinking, oh, the U.S. is there, ISIS is there, we're all going to be killed. And the U.S. leaves, and they get killed. And this is what happens under the Afghan. More deaths and more detriments to the people who live there. So, and then they talked about they briefly mentioned U.S. standing up for democracy and one of their key points. Okay, so the closest time we only intervene at the most is when there's some threat to our people. We act out of self-interest. Although democracy may be one of our key values, we act out of self-interest. And what we see here is that U.S. hedge is already bad because people already see us as a force that's already sticking our head into business that does not really be. And already ISIS uses us as one of the propaganda methods to gain more recruits, saying that the U.S. is sticking their head into everyone's business. And this is going to make us look like the monster the AF team mentioned, which they alluded to ISIS, but they could eventually allude that to the U.S. Okay, so going on to the next case. So what we see here is that more ground troops cause more civilian deaths. We've already seen 500,000 people died in the Iraqi War. We can assume that more people, or at least that number, will die, including more American deaths. And they also believe that 10,000 is going to be enough to stop ISIS, when in fact they're getting more than 6,000 recruits every month. That logic makes no sense, and they provide no clear links, and therefore they have no solvency whatsoever. Going on, so we're going to see more American deaths, and the link is that by putting troops on the ground, they end up killing more, and the impact is more deaths. And we already talked about the power vacuum, how eventually we would have to leave. We could not stay there. And this would lead to worse groups coming in, and we could create this facade of safety, and then once we leave, that people could get killed again. And this would be inherently worse. And already, the Iraqi people themselves do not want us there, because they already know what happened in the Iraqi War. Civilians were killed. The dictator, after the words, the dictator, it's according to history, and we can see from precedents that this is not going to work out the way the AF would want us to believe. So going on, to our second convention, which we kind of could explain more. Okay, so this is what ISIS wants. So ISIS has this, part of their extremist ideology is this philosophy of holy war. And they are currently setting up the West as their opponents, and them trying to defend themselves and defend from the blasphemies of the West. So this is their extremist ideology. So what we are doing by going into the ground, we're actually making the threat seem more real. By putting troops on the ground, we make the threat seem more real, and ISIS now has the power to use U.S. troops on the ground to gain more followers, to gain more recruits. So if there's already 6,000 coming in per month, we're going to see more will come in, and more will join up, believing ISIS's ideology of this holy war, and we're giving into what ISIS wants, and the impact is this is going to be a more huge-scale threat. I actually did mention holy war in my first speech, although, so...
Wait, what is she putting more? Holy war?
I mentioned,
That's not new.
that's not new.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, of course it's not new, but it's the first time she mentioned it. You know what I'm saying, though.
No, okay.
Well, I just didn't pay attention.
Going on,
That's
so
her fault.
reasons why you shouldn't look for the AF. They had no solvency. They never Lincoln had 10,000 troops is going to solve for anything. They try to skew us out of the round by purposely assigning ground troops is gathering information, which everybody can tell that historical precedents ground troops always fight as well as gather intelligence. They're going to be causing more deaths with ground troops. We have seen in Iraq, we've killed over 500,000 people. They argue for U.S. hedge good, but U.S. hedge is clearly bad as one. People already view us as a power that's already sticking to our hedge for their own business. And the Iraqis themselves do not want us there in the first place. Yet they try to advocate for democracy and good rights. And we might be causing human rights violations of our own by intervening in the area. So the Abteen's case does not stand. Okay. Next case. By sticking to the status quo, we can assure that the deaths under ground troops would not happen, and we can assure that there would be no power vacuum, and none of the detrimental effects of making the problem even worse would even happen. Also, we would not be giving to the ISIS ideology of holy war that we can see is that by not giving to the ideology, they lose grounds for recruiting, and because once U.S. troops are on the ground, threat is more imminent, threat is more real once we are on the ground. There is a difference between airstrikes and ground troops the threat is more evident. And therefore, we are not giving ISIS any more grounds to recruit for more followers. So, yeah, so just gonna hit that because I have time. And that's all you would like.
Sorry, like, is your time over?
Oh, it's done. Okay.
That was like 7 minutes.
Alright.
That was 7.
Yo, you haven't gotten the best part yet.
I'm
That's
going
right.
to the bathroom.
Zarina speech
I'm
number
going
2.
to the
Let
bathroom.
go.
I'm going to
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. I thought that was on 5 minutes. Okay.
Oh, I didn't time you. It's all good. We're still gonna win.
Okay.
No problem. You can talk as long as you want.
I'm timing by my watch.
That's right. I can win 2 minutes.
Alright, let's see it.
But I won't. So you can bask in my glory for 5. Okay. So is everyone ready? Toppy is so ready. We affirm today's resolution. The USFG should send ground troops to fight ISIS. Now, we all know that in a basketball game, 3 strikes and you're out. Baseball. Basketball is a different game. Thank you for clarifying. So in baseball, 3 strikes and you're out. So today I'll be showing the 3 strikes that negation, just the 3 main strikes. They've got a lot of problems. But just the 3 main strikes of the affirmation, negation, and why they are essentially out of this debate. So first strike is that they really don't seem to understand the key 2 words of the resolution, and that's ground troops. Okay, so my opponents seem to believe that ground troops are somehow now combat troops, just not in the air, on the ground, as she so clearly mentioned, and wanted everyone to make sure that she did know the difference between the ground and the air. So moving on, but in actuality, as per our definition and our entire plain text, which they never really refuted, they said, and I quote, we agree to their framework and their plan. Actually, ground troops are going to be directing these airstrikes to make them more effective and more accurate. Now, furthermore, they talk about how we're going to be killing innocent civilians, etc., and they brought up some international business times evidence about 50,000 Iraqi civilians dying, but they really, there's none of that here. I'm sorry, you should have saved that for the first 4 speeches.
She said 500,000.
Okay, that's great for her. Moving on. Now she knows numbers too. Okay. Moving on. 500,000, 50,000, it doesn't matter. Iraqi civilians dying, but they really never tell you how. And the reason why so many Iraqi civilians died during the Iraq, not the Iraq war, and the reason why ISIS is gaining so much power is because of the inaccuracy of the airstrikes, which kill so many innocent civilians. Excuse me, your talking time is over. Moving on, is that they really never tell you. But moreover, the inaccuracy of these airstrikes are the reason why ISIS gains so much power. Because for every 1 innocent civilian we kill, 3 join a terrorist organization. However, this resolution and the affirmation solves for this problem because they are going to guide airstrikes. They're going to provide ground intelligence so that they do not kill innocent civilians. After all, that is the definition of ground troops, on the ground. Okay, moving on to their second strike is, well, their entire advocacy is predicated on the word combat and sending
troops. However, when I asked the second speaker right here, where in the resolution it says combat, let's read it together, USFG should send ground troops to fight ISIS, she replied, it's not there. Exactly. Okay? It is not there, so your entire advocacy falls because they're not going around and they're not shooting around innocent civilians as the nation seems to believe. What they're doing is that they're on the ground directing airstrikes so we can solve for all of these innocent civilians dying so that we can combat this terrorist organization, so that we can restore peace in the Middle East. And also, moreover, just a quick tidbit also from the lesson second speaker. She also said that if we can prove that 10,000 ground troops are enough, then, well, we win this debate. Well, I'm glad you said that.
That's not what
Well,
I
I'm
said.
glad you
I
said that, second speaker.
Listen gladly.
You gladly let us win. So, actually, according to our same evidence by General Dempsey, chairman of the military or something like that, I forgot what
Chairman
Joint
of
Arms.
the military.
Joint Arms. What he said is that a couple hundred troops on the ground to combat ISIS is enough to make our airstrikes accurate. Thank you for the win,
Chairman of
second
the
speaker.
military.
So moving on to your third and final strike, and that is, well, your entire advocacy. Now, essentially what you're doing is that you're advocating for continued human rights abuse in the Middle East. Moreover, you're advocating for a terrorist organization to take control. You're advocating for more deaths, more sexual abuses, the continual destroyal of religious sites and people's homes and brutalization. You are advocating for
They
abuse.
mentioned all these abuses, but they never specifically mentioned that we are going to be extending all this abuse throughout any other.
Okay, honestly, it's been mentioned. That's a
Wait, so they mentioned the abuses, but
This
they
is
never
the last
mentioned
ditch
how the
effort
next
to try and mask
extending those
their
abuses.
inabilities. Continue your 30 seconds. Okay, thank you. So, as you can see, when you vote for the negation, you will vote for world chaos and human rights abuses. But when you vote for the affirmation, you vote for a solution and a chance for the Middle Eastern people to finally have a life and safety. Okay, so to conclude, Senate, my fellow audience, we can see now there are 3 strikes, and well, the African negation is out of the debate. So, as Barack Obama once said, vote for me. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, when you search synonyms for combat, the first one is fight.
What's the second one?
Battle.
What's the third one?
Tackle.
Okay, battle. Donald Trump is battling to be the Republican nominee.
No, you can't use it like
Okay.
that.
Excuse me.
Serena,
I just said
Battling
Serena.
something in requires.
Feedback will take 10 times longer if you don't just shut up and let me
Wait,
finish.
can I use the restroom?
Yeah, I got your phone.
He can
I gotta go, actually.
Wait, I have to go.
That's the last
To check my calendar.
That's not cool.
Okay. Serena, do you have phones down? Actually, listen.
Oh, actually, I know our case is shit. You don't have to say that. Yeah, it's really bad. I got confused when I was.
Yeah. Your case was literally like.
Yeah, I said 5
You
minutes.
made the 2 points like the same thing, and then you were like, I'm going on to the second point, and I was like, wait, were you already on the second point?